Hello everyone, welcome back to Don't Touch It. I am your host, Caroline Parker. I have someone on today that I really wanted to have on. I have a midwife. She is Marie-Louise. She is also a published author. She is a content creator. I have asked her all the questions that we want to know. From poo to inductions to HPV to the difficult questions about abortion. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So you are obviously a midwife.
Yeah.
When you trained, you were am I saying this right? You were the youngest of that time to qualify.
Yes.
So how old was that?
So I actually finished my midwifery degree when I was age 20 because I started it obviously when I was 18, but I didn't turn 21 until July, and we'd completed the course prior to my 21st birthday. So the course actually finished, So I was 20 years old and I qualified in a pool of midwives that were some of the youngest midwives in the UK. Yeah.
That's amazing. And what got you into becoming a midwife?
I remember from a really young age being absolutely fascinated by pregnancy. So I'm the eldest of three, and my mum, I still have clear memories now. When my mum was pregnant with my brother, I was fascinated by this, and I thought she had this superpower that no one else had, because I didn't understand at 4 years old what pregnancy is. So I thought that she could grow humans. So when she brought him home to me, I was like, oh my God, he came from there. And I was just mind blown by the whole thing. And I thought it was just her. And then as I got older, I realised pregnancy is something that
women do.
Women do.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have to go off and study this. And as a young student, not a student midwife, when I was at school in my teen years, I used to really annoy all of my science teachers because I'd be like, no, wait, hang on. Can we just rewind? How do two cells meet? And that becomes a brain, and that becomes a fingernail, and then there's a ship. How does that happen? And no one could answer my question.
Because they were probably like going into their textbooks like, shit, we didn't have Google back then.
Yeah, exactly. No ChatGPT. Yeah. What should we do?
This child keeps asking me questions.
Yeah, literally. And the answers just didn't satisfy me. So then I went to like this careers advice meeting, and I was like, I'm fascinated by pregnancy and whatever. And they said to me, oh, you can become a midwife, but you're too young, you don't have children, and you won't get accepted into university. So I was like, watch me.
Yeah. That sounds like a challenge, mate.
Yeah, it did sound like a challenge. I was like, I'm down for it. So I did. I applied for university and I did a lot of research because I was so passionate about it. And my parents were quite worried about me at one stage because I used to cut out pictures of pregnant women and stick them on my wall as a teenager. I was that obsessed.
That's niche.
It's very niche. It's very niche. I know.
Love that.
And they thought I was going to be a teen mum. And they would say to me, Marie, like, we know that you're obsessed with pregnancy. We know that, but please don't have a baby at 16 years old. And I would say to them, no, I don't want a baby. Yeah. Let me see how it really works. Will that satisfy my need to know? But yeah, and I used to explain to them, look, I don't want to be a mum necessarily. I want to find out more about how this works. So anyway, I went off to university and studied it and just absolutely thrived. Don't get me wrong, it was hard. It was really hard. And being so young came with lots of other challenges as well. But I knew, like, I've found myself completely, and I still feel like that. Like 15 years later, I will still be at a birth and I will still look at that baby and be like, wow, that woman grew a whole other conscious human being with a brain and a billion neurons.
A wave over me. That is so amazing.
It's incredible. It's the most beautiful, magical thing in the world. And I still feel like that 15 years later.
Yeah, that's why you're good at your job.
Oh, thank you. I hope so.
So you went straight into university to do midwifery.
I did.
So that is a path you can do in the UK.
It is, yeah. So it's a direct entry. That wasn't always possible. I think I might have been like the second or third cohort to enter into direct entry. But now, yes, it's really common. It's the most common way in which people become midwives in the UK or qualify as midwives. But that's not reflected globally. So globally, in a lot of countries, you need to study nursing first, which I don't actually necessarily agree with. I understand you need to have an understanding of biology, the human body, but midwifery is very unique and very specific to that time in that woman's life. And sometimes I think when you get an overall view of what's usually ill health in nursing, it can kind of skew your vision to perceive pregnancy as an illness that needs to be managed. Not always.
Interesting. Yeah, because when, with like a lot of, I think this is quite common.
Yeah.
I gave birth to Sophie when I was in the US and I just got my green card and I was like, oh, I can work now. And I was like, do you know what? I'd love to see if I could become a midwife and do the training for be a midwife. But I believe that you have to become a nurse practitioner first in the US before you can apply to be a midwife in the US. So you can't become a midwife. You have to do 5 or 6 years of nursing before you can become a midwife. But that's so amazing that in the UK that's a path that young people can take.
Yeah, exactly. And it's only a 3-year course, but you do then do a year following that your preceptorship. So you're under guidance, usually from a mentor or like a senior midwife. And that's really, really helpful because, you know, you find yourself and your own way of doing things in midwifery, because although we provide care of a standardized level, you will find your way of speaking to mums and your way of doing things. And that was also a really fascinating process for me to go through to find my own identity.
It's a people job as well.
Massively.
Yeah. I have a lot of Americans who listen because I used to live in America, so I've got a lot of them. What essentially is a midwife? Sort of in like short term, what is it?
Yeah. So a midwife is a qualified professional that, as we've discussed, has been through some level of training, university usually, and they provide care based on physiology. So physiology is like the normal working, if you like, of the body. So we look at how things work normally, and then we're able to identify if something deviates from what we would expect. And there are very many variations of normality. Just because one woman doesn't follow exactly the textbook that you've learnt from doesn't mean that that's abnormal. And that's kind of where the magic lives in midwifery, because we have that ability to have attended hundreds, perhaps thousands of births and go, okay, that's not in the textbook, but we know actually that's likely a variation of normal because all of these other things are normal. And the other thing is that midwives, not always, of course, but we tend to be very kind of deeply maternal women ourselves that have that deeply caring nature. We go into the profession because we want to care for women and their babies. And that is like what I had like a calling in life, and lots of my colleagues and lots of midwives that I speak to have this like deep kind of intuition. They know this is what I need to do with my life. So
that's amazing.
A lot of us are.
That is so amazing. I'm like in awe of this. Yeah, it's so amazing. Yeah, oh my God, honestly, another life I would have been. I think it's amazing.
It is an amazing job. And so
I did watch a lot of One Born Every Minute. So I do see myself as quite I'm quite good at this.
You're good, yeah.
I could deliver a baby. Well, actually, I worked for Emirates and we had to do like a basic delivery.
Did you?
Yeah. Because they're such long flights.
Okay.
So there's like a couple of babies are born each year on an Emirates flight.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And then I don't know if this is still anymore because, you know, they like to take things away. It used to be that baby then gets like lifetime flights.
Really?
I might have made that up.
Oh,
but,
my goodness.
But it always happens because a lot of people are from so many different walks of life.
Yeah.
They don't know that they can't go after 37 weeks or, you know, people go into labour before that as well. So,
exactly.
We would have to like, you know, do the dummies.
Oh, I didn't know that you had any kind of training. Yeah. Oh, I bet they did.
They're like, I'm here to do chicken and beef while I got a woman's... if they're pulling a baby out. Yeah. I know if it ever happened on a flight, they'd probably be like, can I get a woman here?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Honestly, I'm in absolute awe for midwives. But in the UK, midwives deliver the baby.
Yes. So our role is to care for women and their babies from very early on during pregnancy. So we will do their booking appointments. The first ever appointment that you have should be with a midwife. And here in the UK, we have midwifery-led care. So that means that your midwife will lead your care and support you to make decisions and also make referrals should they be needed at different times during the pregnancy. As I mentioned, recognising that something is deviating from the norm, perhaps we need obstetric input, for example, and then may well refer you on to see an obstetrician because as a midwife, that's not something that we are trained in. So therefore we need a referral. in a lot of places around the world, America, UAE, they have obstetric-led care. So that means that when you become pregnant, you
go to an OB.
You go to a doctor. Exactly. And we know from global research that midwifery-led care leads to better outcomes. It reduces stillbirth, it reduces premature birth, it reduces cesarean section, it enhances women's experience. They often report a more positive experience. There are so many positives to midwifery-led care all the way through to financial. So we see a massive cost saving, around about a 30% cost saving when we provide midwifery-led care. So of course I'm a massive, I'm biased, but I'm a supporter of midwifery-led care.
And midwives are in the hospital. So in the US, they are, on the whole, I actually had the exception to this, but on the whole, they are in birthing centres rather than the hospital itself. Whereas that would be a doctor-led birth. But I actually, my first two, I gave birth to in the military. So we had military hospital, and similar to the NHS, it sort of like comes with your job, and like you don't have to be referred out. It's all kind of like within the same sort of system. And I had a midwife, but it was very different because I also had doctors in the room. Yeah. So there was like a fully trained doctor, and then there was a junior doctor because it was a training hospital. But she was like in control of the room. Mm-hmm. So she was like, I remember I was in my bed and she sort of sat opposite me on the windowsill actually, and then watched and controlled the situation from behind and was actually conducting the birth, whereas the doctor still caught my babies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, why isn't she just doing it?
Yeah.
But yeah, she was watching everyone, because then obviously you then have nurses, and then if there's no babies being delivered at the time, you've got a whole room. I had a whole
room
thing,
of people,
everyone cheering me. But the nurses in America are very similar to your emotional support as a midwife. Mm-hmm. So like when I gave birth in a private hospital with Olivia, my third, it was my nurse essentially did my whole labour. And she was amazing. But then a doctor still had to catch my baby. I was like, she could have done it. She did the whole thing. She was doing my checks. Yeah. So it was the middle of the night. So my doctor was asleep. Yeah. You know, because she was probably on a 24-hour or whatever shift. So she did all my checks. I remember thinking like, why isn't she just catching my baby? Yeah. It's so different.
It is so different. And I've worked in the private sector globally, and I have found that particularly frustrating, where I've had to wait for a doctor. Even though I'm competent, I'm qualified, I've got great experience under my belt, I would still have to wait for an obstetrician to arrive for the birth of the baby. Which when a mum is, she's progressing really well in her labour, she's feeling confident, you're supporting her throughout the labour, to then bring in a doctor who hasn't been there and hasn't seen what has gone on during that labour, I think can be really tricky for everyone, and it changes the whole dynamic in the room.
Yeah. And also to tell someone like, okay, can you stop pushing? You're like, well, I'm not, because that's what contractions are. Yeah. Especially for me, I was on my third baby. Yeah. So like, she was coming out. So, but she didn't have time to like put the tarpaulin out and everything, so actually there was just like stuff everywhere before I got moved over to mother and baby. I remember we were just like, because I didn't catch any of it. Because she was just coming and she was like trying to put her gloves on, and she was like, don't push. And I remember thinking like, well, this is what we're doing. We're here.
Exactly.
We're still here for, guys.
That's it. And also, I always explain it in this way. It's like saying to someone, don't vomit. When you've got a baby's head in your vagina and your body is contracting, the uterus is a very, very strong muscle that becomes very thick towards the end of labour. And it is physically pushing your baby down. To say, it's like telling someone, don't vomit when they're about to vomit. It's not possible. No. It's, so that is very frustrating. And I think then, as well, for women who want to listen to their body and what their body's telling them to do, for us to then intervene and interrupt that does not make any sense physiologically. So it is tricky.
Yeah. You're a mum yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have 2 children.
I do.
And then a big congratulations.
Thank you.
You are pregnant with your third by the time this is out.
I know.
That'll be announced. Amazing.
I'm joining you in the 3 club.
I know. Welcome. It's nice. It's all right.
It's all right.
Yeah. I'd have more. I'm like one of those people where I'm like, what's 3, what's 4, what's 5?
Yeah. I know, I get that. And that was kind of my mentality as well. I had 1. I found it hard work. I had 2. I was like, 2 is an actual zoo. Like, this is another level. I didn't know there were so many levels to motherhood. And I was like, whoa, we jumped up like 1,000 levels there.
Yeah. 1 to 2 is a big leap.
Isn't
it?
Yeah. Wow. And
I don't think the third, mate, it's already mad.
Yeah.
I actually don't think that jump is... I would say the first one, the problem is you, because you're a new parent.
Yeah.
The second one is like, oh my God, how do I balance? And then you feel so much guilt towards your first. I think it's more like that dynamic is difficult. Obviously, all babies differ. My son had reflux. That was tough. But like the third, mate.
Yeah. That was my mentality. There's so much carnage.
And you don't have to buy much anymore.
No.
And you're so much more relaxed. Like, oh, I'll get it on Facebook Marketplace.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Like, oh, charity shop. Whereas like with your first, it's so expensive because you're just like, no, I'm getting everything for my child.
Yeah.
When third, you're just like, oh.
Yeah. I think
in reality.
Definitely. Women are missold so much, especially with their first baby, like you say, like all of these products, all of these gadgets, all of these things. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe I'm looking into it too much or being too sensitive about it. But I also think that interferes with your intuition as a mum. Like there's so many things that are available to tell you that you're doing things right or doing it well, or like your baby's okay. Go take a look at your baby. Like make your own assessment on what you think about, rather than like putting data. And don't get me wrong, it can be helpful for some women to see the data if you're that way inclined. I get that. But nothing takes away from your intuition as a mum and your instinct to look at your own baby and go, do you know what? That might say that that's okay, but I don't feel like it is.
100%. I didn't really use social media when I had my oldest, but I actually but that comes with privilege. But I just did what my sister did. Yeah. I literally just used what bottle she used. Yeah. I used what swaddle she used. Great. I just did what I was like told. Yeah. Whereas now there's so much information, isn't there? Like it's so overwhelming.
It's so overwhelming. And some of the questions that I get on a daily basis, in particular on Instagram from mums, I actually really feel for them because the landscape's changed completely and it continues to change in the digital age. Like we were not equipped to be exposed to this amount of information at our fingertips. Judgment, opinions, it's overwhelming outside of pregnancy, let alone when you're pregnant and you want the best for your baby and you're getting all of this conflicting advice. I think it's really difficult for mums to navigate. And as I say, some of the questions that I get on Instagram, I'm like, oh my goodness, like I don't envy you. And like we have to really go back to the beginning with it because women aren't educated at school age. I think they should be. Like, you know, I joked about my teachers getting annoyed with me because they didn't know the answers. But also, like, how ridiculous is that? Like 80%-ish of women globally will become pregnant at some point in their life. Yet we are not taught about it at school. Like, why aren't we taught about these basic things? What happens to your body when you fall pregnant? Like how to work with your body, how to understand your body. We are taught nothing. Yeah. And then you become pregnant, you're exposed now to all of this social media, digital media, headlines, opinions, products, companies. And you're there trying to navigate what on earth is going on with your body and these decisions you have to make. So yeah, I think it's a tough time, but women should be educated from 4 or 5 years old about this.
It's the same as teaching taxes in school. Do
you
know what I mean?
Exactly that. Yes.
There are, I think now in 2026, gosh, that's weird, we need to like actually evaluate what kids are learning in school. Definitely. I think it has changed slightly since, I know I'm 36, so since I was in school, it was very sort of traditional subjects. But like we do need to start teaching children the circle of life and like more. I mean, for me, when I was at school, I went to a all-girls Catholic school. So we had just a governing body come in and we went to the chapel and we put a condom on a courgette. Like that was it.
What an
and
experience.
Then the girls got sent home with tampons and the boys got sent home with condoms. Isn't that wild?
Absolutely wild. Mine wasn't too dissimilar. I only spent a year at an all-girls Catholic school as well. And yeah, it wasn't too dissimilar, to be honest. We didn't put condoms on courgettes. I think I would have enjoyed that a bit more.
Oh, it was good giggles, good giggles. Yeah. You are now with your third and you have 3, or will be 3 years apart on each. Was that a personal decision? Was that from your experience in midwifery? Like, where did you get to with that time?
So a combination of things. I used to work with this doctor, a paediatrician in Australia, and I adored him. He was like... Nice. Oh, just like lovely, like father. He was very paternal, and the way that he used to speak to women and the way that he used to handle little newborn babies and his knowledge base was just incredible. And I really, really trusted him and I loved our working relationship. And I used to ask him loads of questions and like pick his brain about loads of stuff. And we were talking one day about having kids. I didn't have kids at the time. And I said to him, is there a perfect gap for the
what's
child?
the sweet spot?
Yeah. And he said to me, that, you know, you can't ever do anything perfectly, but the 3-year mark is a good age gap for children, because by the time that the next baby is born, they're able to usually speak in sentences and express themselves a little bit more, you know, like if they're feeling angry or upset, obviously, you know, the very basic things, hot, cold, tired, hungry. They're usually potty trained, and those first 3 years of life, a significant amount of brain development occurs. And don't get me wrong, that does continue, but it's those first few years that are really, really important. And so, you know, 3 years is kind of a good age gap for a child. And as a midwife, we know that it can take it's not 6 weeks, your postpartum recovery.
No.
The postnatal period is identified as being 6 weeks following birth. But I always say postpartum lasts forever, because your body has changed and you have changed as a person. Your brain's been rewired. We see that on MRI scans. The maternal brain, they did an amazing study in Barcelona of women that had children and women that didn't. And there were visible brain changes in the grey matter of the brain, and also in the amygdala. So that's the area of the brain that's like sensitized to identify like threats and things. So that's why you can feel like hyper alert or hypersensitive during pregnancy and after you've had a baby, and, you know, even the years after that. So going back to the 3-year gap, we know that it takes time for your body to heal and recover. And in some cases it can take a year or so, especially if you breastfeed. Like I breastfed my daughter for 18 months.
Yeah.
And I still felt really postpartum like a year later, because I was still lactating.
Yeah.
So, you know, for that reason as well. And I felt like at 2 years, after when she was 2 years old, I actually felt like, okay, I feel a bit more like the person I was before I had kids. And then a couple of months later, I felt pregnant again.
Yeah.
But it worked out for me. And that was based on his advice. And it was also based on my knowledge as a midwife. But I don't want anyone to feel guilty if they've had they're pregnant again in 6 months' time. It happens. And if you're older and you want to have a few children and you're concerned about your age, etc., then, you know, you have to do what's right for you at the time, taking into consideration all of the other things that are going on in your life. It's just, that's what worked for me. So Georgie is born on the 3rd of August. Frankie is born on the 21st of July.
Oh, gosh.
And this one's the 28th of July. I literally...
That's a busy summer.
3 years apart, exactly bang on.
Mine are all 2 years apart.
Are they?
Yeah. So I didn't... the difference for me is I didn't breastfeed for that long. And I think that is a massive factor.
Yeah.
I breastfed Sophie for the longest, and then it sort of got less and less as children.
Fair enough. Absolutely get that.
I just didn't have time. And I learned how to, by my third, to get my husband to help more.
Yes.
Which I didn't with Sophie. I wanted to be more in control. And then I realised that actually delegating and allowing help in is a successful team.
Absolutely.
So by Olivia, it was more like, can you do this bottle? And then I just sort of dried up, and it was like, it just became natural for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got the 1 year itch.
Did you?
Yeah, I got the 1 year itch, and then I'd get pregnant, and then obviously my Olivia now is 2. She turned 2 a couple of days ago. I just bought a puppy because I can't have any more kids. So all my kids and the puppy now.
Oh, you must have so much maternal love to give.
I always want to be that, like, I crave the busyness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think people think I'm mad, and I think being ADHD as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
I'm fine.
Yeah, you thrive on carnage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be filming a YouTube and people are like, how are you concentrating with all of that? And I'm like, with what?
Yeah.
I don't hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get hyper focused.
Yeah.
Because that is a part of ADHD as well, that you can block everything out.
Yeah.
And you can just be hyper focused on that one thing. And everyone else is like,
Yeah. They'll setting fire to things behind me. I'm just like, yeah, don't die. Yeah, I crave it. Being a midwife and being pregnant, perhaps with your first actually, was there things that you were like, oh my goodness, like obviously I got taught this, but like, this is mad?
Yeah, definitely. More so actually with this one, I can't believe, like, my third pregnancy, and having been a midwife for like 15 years, I'm still learning stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, going back to the first one. So the first one was a whole new experience, and I was really grateful for my midwifery knowledge, because I knew what was normal, what was not normal. I knew how to work with my body, and pregnancy wasn't something that scared me at all, because it was like a second nature. It's all I'd ever done. I qualified at such a young age that my whole adult life.
You can pin yourself up on your walls now.
Yes, I can. I want to do that. My husband would be like, what is wrong with you?
Kourtney Kardashian has all of her pregnancies butt naked on
Does
her.
she?
Yeah. Because she's like, it's the most beautiful version of me.
Oh,
Isn't that cool?
I love
like,
that.
Love that.
That is beautiful.
Yeah. So
I
whenever
love
people
that.
like make snarky comments, she's like, please.
Yeah. Look what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it was really fascinating to almost like have this observer role because I'd practiced midwifery and I'd supported women and I'd done all of the clinical side of stuff. When I was pregnant and I was the one that was receiving that, it was almost like someone else was watching. It was a really weird experience. And even when I gave birth, I couldn't switch my midwife brain off. Like I examined myself and was like, I'm 2 centimeters.
Yeah, when you were labouring,
yeah,
like checks and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and even like as a receiving care as a pregnant woman or a labouring woman was a really bizarre out of body experience.
Wow.
And as I say, I was really grateful for everything because I have home births. I've had 2 home births. I'm planning a third one. And that's just what I love doing. But I think it's because I understand my body, pregnancy and birth so well. I feel really confident to do that. And I'm grateful.
Yeah. Because for me, I would be nervous to do a home birth. I would do a water birth, but it's really available in the UK to do water in hospitals.
Yeah.
Where it's not in America, you again would have to go to a birthing centre. And if you told someone you were doing a water birth with a midwife, they would literally be like, are you well?
You've lost it.
Yeah, you've lost the plot, you hippie. And you would be like labelled. Whereas like, I would say 2 out of 5 of my friends have all had water births. I actually think it's quite common.
Yeah.
Where they've laboured in the pool and then had to get out because of like not progressing or anything like that. But most of my friends in the UK have had some kind of water within their labouring, which I think is beautiful.
It is. And I think that might be a reflection of the model of care that we have, midwifery-led care here. So we will openly talk to women about the benefits of being in water, about free movement, about like their baby's position, all of those kinds of things that we know water can be really supportive of, aside from also being a form of pain relief in a way. Because when you submerge yourself into warm water, you get that buoyancy and it can really support. A lot of women get a lot of back pain during labour. So when you're immersed in water, that can help to alleviate some of that. Not all of it, of course, but it does really, really help. So we often talk to women about that. Whereas in the US, they have the obstetrics-led care and that's not how they have their babies. They want women on the beds. They want to be able to see. They want the bright lights. It's all obstetrics-led.
I asked if I could. I remember I went for the tour of the hospital of the room and stuff, which actually I quite like that because I knew where I was going. Yeah. And I remember saying like, do you have like a bath or anything? Like, I know I can't give birth in the bath, but do you have a bath that I could sit in when I'm doing my contraction? She was like, you have a shower? I guess. And she was like, I guess you could stand in the shower. And I was like, okay, it's just silly me, so European.
I bet. What a culture shock as well for you.
Yeah, mad. Because most of my friends, so I had my daughter when I was 30, so a couple of my friends have already had kids. So hearing the difference of our labours was hilarious.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just can't get my head around the fact that it was even a question whether or not you could use a shower when you're in labour. But
not to say I had lovely labours. Yeah. I would never bash how I did it. I think it was lovely. I had healthy babies. You know, like I don't knock it at all.
And that's the most important thing. That's why I always say to mum, so I want to listen to well music in my own home and I want to have a water bath. But if you want to have induction of labour, an epidural, you want to be on an obstetric unit, not in a mean way, I don't care. It's not my job to...
It's not my journey.
It's not my journey. It's my job to support you in what you want and to advocate for you and ensure that we get as close as possible to the birth that you want. So my perspective and what I want is actually completely removed from the situation as long as you're happy. That's the most important thing, that you feel that you are empowered, you're making decisions, and it's not me dictating to you what you should want from your birth, because that's not my job.
Yeah. I had epidurals for all 3.
Yeah, fair enough. And most women love them. That's the thing.
The worst part is just the local, before they prep it. And then the actual thought of it, because I overheard them say like 8 centimetres or something. And then I was like, that actually made me go like, I'm such a fainter.
Oh,
so like, so like anything of that. And I was like, there's an 8-centimetre tube in my back. What are you saying?
Yeah.
And I was like, you could have had that conversation outside.
Yeah.
But I was in a trainee hospital, so
Yeah.
they were just discussing it, and I understand why. But at the time, I was
Yeah.
like, don't say these things.
Of course.
Yeah, and they're men, they're not going to be birthing, so it's slightly removed, I think, as well. But
yeah, definitely. No, and it is scary, I think, to think that, because it's also, what other situation in life would you have like an 8-centimetre
tube in your back?
Yeah. Like, you wouldn't. And it seems so alien and so bizarre to us. So yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And even me, I've seen them being done many times.
Yeah.
I've even assisted anaesthetists, etc. But even me, the thought of that being sat in my back does make me feel a bit...
And then they sort of like sit you back and you're like, can I sit back?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And then you're like screaming, and next thing you're like, oh, you're on your phone, like, oh God, yeah, am I having a contraction?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Everything's calm. I'm like, so worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my best friend, actually, she had an epidural, and then for a second she was like, I really just want to be all natural. I want to be on all fours. And for me, I'm just like, that's just not the journey I want.
No, exactly.
Her husband texted me afterwards and he just went, she had exactly what she wanted. And I was like, then I know exactly what she mooed like a cow.
Yeah.
She got everything. She was probably butt naked and she just had everything that she wanted. Yeah. And I was so happy for her to have that. Yeah. And it was her last child. And I just think that's what the most important bit was. I had my birth I wanted and she had hers, even though they're completely different.
Exactly. And that's not what matters. And I think, again, going back to the digital age and stuff now, there's so much on social media of like, you should want this kind of birth, like you should either want this kind of like, I don't know, this idealized version of birth where, you know, you've got all these affirmations around and you're breathing your baby out and not making any noise, or the other side.
Could you imagine? Yeah,
I know.
I'm just envisioning my births. Yeah,
exactly.
Nothing was silent.
Yeah, exactly. And I think then sometimes women are now being, you know, almost like set up to fail in some ways, because I believe in hypnobirthing. I did hypnobirthing. I'm a proper home birth.
Yeah, it's really common in the UK, hypnobirthing. Yeah. I think even people, like, I even read a hypnobirthing book, even though that's so not something that I would do. Yeah. But I did take elements of it still into my epidural one, because you're not, if you get an epidural, you're not getting that until a little bit later. You still got to go through the process before.
Exactly.
Which hurts.
Yes.
Like, ultimately, giving birth hurts.
Yeah, it does hurt. Like, exactly. And that's actually what I was going to say. Like, even though I was that, you know, that mum that wanted those things, hypnobirthing went out the window. Yeah. I was shouting my mouth off. It felt good, actually. I felt powerful at the moment. And don't get me wrong, it was painful, but it was a pain that I could cope with and manage. And I kind of thought of it like, I've not run a huge amount, but I've done like half marathons. You got to push through, and like, you know, like I used that kind of mentality, I suppose. But I was shouting, and I think had I not known that actually that's okay, and I've seen so many women do exactly the same thing, I would have looked at some of the videos that I see online and be thinking, I'm some wild woman that's out of control. But actually I was like, this is completely normal. It's okay for me to shout. I'm going to keep shouting because it feels good. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine being on your ward and you're like, I'm going to be completely silent, and then next door you got some woman screaming. That would scare the absolute bejesus out of you.
Yeah. I mean,
what have I got coming?
Yeah.
I thought we were all silent.
Yeah.
No,
definitely not. I mean, you hear some you know when a mum's about to give birth.
Yeah.
We know all the noises.
It's the transition. What are some common pregnancy symptoms that are like totally normal but aren't really talked about much, or perhaps you don't see online, or things?
So I wrote about this in my book, and pregnancy, I say, it's like considered a wet condition, basically. Like, and lots of women will come to me and they'll be like, I'm getting loads of discharge. I'm getting loads of like watery discharge. I'm getting like egg white consistency. Yeah. And they're like embarrassed to talk to me about it, because they're like, what is actually coming out? Is this normal? And later on in pregnancy, sometimes women also think that their waters have gone, and that can be increase in discharge. Or it can be if the pressure on your bladder has caused you to leak a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I always say pregnancy is a wet condition.
Yeah, 100%.
Obviously if you're concerned about it, or, obviously if there's a smell to it, or it's a funny colour, or there's a lot of it and you do think your waters have gone, whatever, speak to your midwife. But in general, so many mums are like really embarrassed about it. And it's completely normal. Yeah. It's, your body's doing what it's meant to do, because what happens, the reason that it happens is to prevent infection. So the body's almost like trying to flush out infection. And when you have that more of like a water cycle, then you've got less opportunity for infection to travel up to the pregnancy. So it's a defense mechanism. So I always say, you know, welcome it. It might not feel good, but
I think
welcome
discharge in general is taboo. Even like we're women, that's just what happens. I remember as a teenager being so embarrassed just by like doing my own washing because I'd be embarrassed by it. And then I used to always wear pregnancy period pants. Like the organic, because like if you wear a liner every day, you know, a lot of them have chemicals and they rub and like it's not getting air because a lot of them are plastic.
Exactly.
So I used to wear period pants, and I still do now for my period actually. But they're so much more comfortable, and also air is able to get to, and it's not going to get worse or an infection or any type of way. I'm a big period pants.
Me too.
Like,
Massively.
Love period pants.
Same.
Especially for postpartum as well.
Yes.
Because you can bleed. Some people are, I only bled for 2 weeks. And then sometimes you're bleeding for 8 weeks. And sometimes you stop bleeding for 2 days and then it comes back.
It starts again.
Yeah. So everyone I say who, I'm like, right, wear the Freedom and the big pad for the first week or whatever when you're really gushing. And then get yourself some period pants.
Yes.
And try and get them all those organic-y ones you can find.
100%. Yeah, that's great advice. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more.
Yes,
I love
I did
that.
something right.
Come and be a midwife.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. I love it, yeah. What is the role of a midwife through pregnancy rather than in actual labour itself?
So through pregnancy, we have like in NHS services, we'll have like an antenatal care pathway whereby you'll be seen at certain times during your pregnancy for certain checks and tests. So for example, you know, you're seen at around 8 weeks and then you'll go and have your 12-week scan and then you're seen again at around 16 weeks. And those appointments are thought out at different stages because different potential complications can arise at different times. So that's why we like to see quite frequently, so we can check your blood pressure, we can check your urine, and that's what we're doing really. We're you know, screening for any kind of abnormalities, and it also gives us the opportunity to talk to women to see how they're doing in their pregnancy, because we are really heavily guided by that as well. So one of the first things I say when I see a woman antenatally is, how are you? Have you got any concerns? Before I do anything, because don't get me wrong, those checks and tests are important. We do recommend them. But what's just as important is finding out what she's got to tell me, because we can gain so much information from what you tell us. And I think sometimes women come into appointments with like an attitude of like, oh, hand myself over, like you're the expert. And I'm like, no, you're the expert in your body. You tell me what's going on and you tell me how you feel. We'll then deal with that information and then we'll cover what I need to do.
Yeah.
So we see them throughout the pregnancy, and then towards the end, we do different blood tests as well to check that they're not becoming anemic, etc. And we might need to do any other blood tests if we're concerned that there's something else going on. Like there are various conditions, obstetric cholestasis, where a symptom is getting really severe itching on the hands, sometimes on the feet. Yeah. And it can affect the liver. So we'll do blood tests around that. Preeclampsia as well. We'll do some additional blood tests if we need to. And then right towards the end of pregnancy, we will make birth plans with women. So we'll speak to women about, you know, their plans during what I was saying to you. And I often say to women, it's not my job to tell you how you should give birth. You tell me. Yeah. And then we talk through all of their options. And also there's now more and more fetal surveillance during pregnancy. So we're looking at baby's growth. We're measuring the tummy, the abdomen, and plotting it on a graph and having a look at whether or not that's normal, and if we've got any concerns over fetal growth, if the baby's measuring too big or the baby's measuring too small. But that's a whole separate conversation because it's very complicated. It's nuanced. Part of me agrees with some of it. Part of me doesn't agree with a lot of what's kind of going on in this level of surveillance.
Moving to birth plans then, as you mentioned, are you an advocate for birth plans? Written, not written, in your head? What do you think is...
Yeah.
Especially for a first-time mum, for example, going into it, what do you feel about them?
So to answer your question directly, I think birth plan is a massive yes from me as a midwife. And just having the icons is actually really helpful for us midwives as well, because we can gain a lot of information from them rather than a lot of written text, especially if you come in advanced labour. Like I've had lots of women, this happened many times to me, where I haven't met a mum before. She comes in and she's in advanced labour and I'm having to like read through, a few pages whilst I'm trying to provide clinical care, whilst I am considering everything else that I need to consider to make sure that, everything is kept safe, etc. And on top of that, document. So it's
Short
really
and sweet.
helpful. Short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Little circles with pictures are great.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And then also a birth plan isn't like a contractual agreement that you need to stick to. A birth plan is an opportunity for you to understand all of your options and, make some plans around that, rather than it then, I'm as midwife saying, do you want your baby to have vitamin K? Well, what's vitamin K? And we're then having to have this conversation. Yeah. It's not the best time to have it. Thinking ahead is always better. And it just makes things run a bit smoothly postnatally. So you're not having to think about all of this stuff and weigh up the risks and benefits and things like that.
So would a midwife at the end of the pregnancy, on the whole, help you write one here in the UK? Or is that something you would homework at home?
Homework at home.
Homework at home.
Yeah, homework at home.
When you go into a birth, obviously, as I know and you know, and they don't always go to plan. How is it best to sort of get women to understand and sort of be flexible going in off their birth plan? Is that something you struggle with some women, that they're very sort of strict? Oh, no, this is how it was meant to go. How do you sort of curb people's expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I said homework at home. That's not strictly true. We will talk through these scenarios. So if a mum says, okay, I'm talking, her 36-week appointment, we're talking about her birth, and she says she wants X, Y, and Z, and I say, have you considered, ABC? And then we will have a conversation about that, because it's really important to have an element of flexibility. Like, birth is unpredictable. It doesn't matter how qualified you are, how experienced you are, how many babies you've had. Birth is always unpredictable. And that's something we all just have to accept. It's just a fact. And how your body is, with one baby might be completely different to how it is with another baby. And there are so many variables involved during birth as well. It's impossible to control them all. We should not try to control them all. So always understanding that, you might plan for a home water birth, but you might end up with an emergency C-section. So what does an emergency C-section look like? I say that to all of women that I speak to that are planning a home birth. Let's talk about what that looks like, because it's often something they haven't even considered, because in their mind, that's the birth they're having. Yeah. And it can be very upsetting for them if they end up with an emergency section, because they're quite traumatized by that sometimes, because they, it was so far removed from what they wanted and expected and didn't plan for, that it made them feel really out of control. You still have an element of control if you understand what happens during that process and you make decisions around that. Like, I've advocated for women to have certain music on during an emergency C-section.
Always got to have the music on.
Have to have the music on.
I'm such a big music person.
Yeah.
My midwife came in for, I think it was my middle, and was like, yeah, I like this one.
That's me.
We were like listening to Adele. I just think, bring your music. I always say to people, I actually have a Labour playlist on my Spotify.
Yep,
that
same.
People actually have written to me and been like, can you share it with me?
Yeah.
Because I do all music that I know every single word to.
Yes.
So like Robbie Williams, Atomic Kitten, Adele, because I want to be able to sing.
Yeah.
I can't be like working out a rap.
No,
when I'm like this, I'm a hummer when I'm in pain. So I'm like, and then I need to be able to like sing the actual words to push through.
Yeah.
And so if I've not had a C-section, but I can imagine that brings you something to take your ear to, rather than just like listening to people scurrying around.
Exactly that. It's a positive distraction. So you are able to like focus on the lyrics to the song. And also often the music that you've spoken about as well, a lot of that is associated with like fun, happy silliness. So your brain is hardwired to recognize patterns. So if that's why, if you spray Charlie red in Superdrug, I'm in the school changing rooms like 15 years old. It takes you back, and your brain is hardwired to do that, because that's how we end up keeping safe, and that's also how we learn how to behave and be in this world. So if you are listening to music throughout your pregnancy that makes you feel good, and you're singing every word, and you're at home in your kitchen feeling good, being silly, whatever, if you're lying on an operating theatre and you're hearing that same music, your brain does the same thing. It will support you to take you back to those positive memories if you lean into it.
Oh, I love that. What actually happens in labour compared to what people perhaps see on TV?
Oh my goodness.
And movies.
Don't get me started.
Because as young children, that's what you see. Rachel from Friends giving birth with not even a bead of sweat. You know, like,
Literally.
yeah. And then you
That's
get to it and
it.
you're like, oh.
Yeah, this is not how it looks in the movies. There's so much nonsense online and in the media when it comes to birth. I mean, a couple of things, the two top things that really irritate me and everyone in my family, because as soon as it happens, I'm like, that's not how it really happens. And my family like, just shut up, Marie, it's a film. But one of them being when their waters go on the film.
Every pregnant woman's waters go. I thought that would happen.
Yeah.
And I remember them saying to me, they're like, this is actually, it's not rare, but it's like uncommon.
Yeah. Yes, it is uncommon for women, a certain percentage of women. I think it's 15%, but I might have got that wrong. Around about. Women's waters low prior to, so them walking around in a shopping mall. My waters have gone, exactly. It doesn't happen like that. You do tend to start labour first for the vast majority of women. And then also they make out like it's this huge emergency that the waters have gone, and like it's like, you know, really drummed up to be this level of drama. And actually,
like, get an ambulance, you've got to go to hospital.
Yeah, like the baby's going to arrive now. And it's like, no, that also does not happen like that. Labour often takes many hours. It's not an emergency when your waters go. And so much so that I once had a lady who actually, I said, let's talk about your fears during birth. She was quite anxious. I said, let's talk about it. Because I do this thing with women where I take their fears and we put them on trial and we interrogate them. And then a lot of the time we lock up the key, we throw them away and lock up the key, lock them up. So we did that with her, and her biggest fear was her waters going and the baby not being able to breathe.
Oh, bless.
And I explained to her, so the amniotic fluid doesn't provide oxygen to the baby. And it's not an emergency when your waters go, because she really thought that the baby would suffocate without the amniotic fluid. So I explained all of this to her, and that fear just was
gone
instantly removed. Yeah. So I think, you know, the media does have a lot to answer for.
Oh, definitely. Especially, I think it's definitely getting better, I think, on movies. But I think for our generation, like, it was so not birth.
No.
Like, we are starting to see it more. I think films are starting to be a bit more realistic.
Yeah.
Semi more now. But yeah, I think we were set up to fail.
Yeah. Agreed.
What do you think parents can do to mentally prepare for after the baby comes? What would be your best advice? Because like I said earlier, I think sometimes after your first, a lot of the time it can be the parents rather than the baby, with your like fears and, oh my God, this is so difficult.
Yeah.
How do you think, or would you give advice from your personal and professional experience?
Yeah, so there's no time like the postpartum time. It comes with so many changes, so like hormonal changes, relationship changes, physical changes to your body, sleep disturbances, and all of those things in isolation are really big things for you to deal with. When you put you group them all together in a very short period of time, it is madness. And I think it's the most important thing for mums to do. We talked about a birth plan. I say to all mums, make a postnatal plan. A birth plan is important, but a postnatal plan will actually set you up for the foundations of your family, and very basic, simple things like I always say about automate, eliminate, delegate. So automate, what can you get on a regular shop that's just going to show up to your house once a week of stuff that you need? Can you sign up to a subscription service for nappies so you don't run out of nappies at like 3 o'clock in the morning, for example? Yeah. What else can you automate? Can you, a little text message that you could write out? Thank you. So, you know, when people text you, so you're not having that emotional load of like, oh my God, all these people have texted me and I've not texted anyone back, and it's stressful. So create a template on your phone. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. You know, we'll drop you a message when you're able to come and see the baby, something like that, or whatever feels right for you.
And then you can just copy and paste.
Copy and paste.
This is amazing. I've never heard of this. To do a postnatal
plan helps set you up.
Yeah.
And then really other things like prep and freeze on mat leave. I always say prep your meals, freeze them whilst you're on maternity leave if you've got time, if you're able to. If not, then think about, you know, a delivery food service. Yeah. And, you know, there's a company, doula, the food doula that I use postnatally.
Oh, wow.
And she creates really healthy, nutritious postnatal meals that are full of vitamins, minerals, proteins, that you need to help your body repair after birth. So if you've got the budget for that and you're able to, looking at those different options as well. Delegating. So that's really key. Like and being upfront about the delegation as well. I think as women, and definitely myself, I'm a people pleaser and I'm not a very direct person, but motherhood really taught me how to be direct, in particular with my husband.
Yeah.
Now he's like,
got time.
okay, yeah, you haven't got time for it.
And you're also snappy with the lack of sleep. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's normal and that's also okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a robot. You're not a superhuman being that doesn't have emotions and isn't affected by sleep deprivation. Like, it's okay to snap. We don't have to be perfect. So I always say delegate and be clear on the delegation. It might look like you need to cook dinner tonight, or it might look like you need to take the baby after I finish this feed because I need to go and have a bath.
Yeah.
Like whatever that might look like, be direct, delegate. And that can also be to the circle of people around you. And then eliminate. Is whatever it is that you're looking at going to support you to rest and feel better? Is it going to support you to bond with your baby? Those kinds of things are what you really need to be focusing on after you've had a baby. And if whatever it is you need to do doesn't tick that box, consider if you can get it off your desk and just not do it. That's always an option, saying no. But I know as women, the mental load, the workload, everything is a lot. And
the more children you have as well, because it's very difficult to sort of not disconnect, but sort of like delegate the older children on stuff that perhaps you already do.
Yeah.
That's really hard. I always say postpartum because that's what it is in America. Postnatal. I had postnatal depression after my son. And I didn't actually know that I had it until I was coming out of it.
Yeah.
Is that something common that you see? I was like, I just thought this was hard.
Yeah.
And then as I was sort of coming up, I'll sort of describe it as I was finally able to see my children's faces rather than just doing the robotic movements of it. I literally was like, wow. And I was seeing their faces again, which I'd sort of lost myself in. And then I was like, oh, actually, I wasn't okay.
Oh, that makes me a bit emotional.
Oh, it's horrible.
It is horrible. And I had exactly what you're describing after I had Georgie, my first. And there was like a period where I really felt like that and I felt quite disconnected to her. And that was really, really hard. And a lot of mums, the way you described it then was exactly how I felt. And I actually haven't heard it being described like that before, of like not being able to see their faces. And I think that I did sort of like dissociate for a while, like from her. And then
it holds guilt.
And then you feel so guilty. Yeah. You feel
once
so
you're out
guilty.
of it, you're then like, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see all this stuff online about being present with your kids. And you can't be present with your kids when you are suffering with depression.
Yeah.
And like, you know, and also postnatal depression is different to clinical depression. You know, as I said, you know, all of those things that are grouped together. It's not one thing that you can, you know, reduce, fix, medicate, look at. It's like a whole host of things that are all interlinked. And that's why I think you feel so hazy during that period and you don't even realise that you're going through it until that starts to lift and you come out the other side. And it's really, really common. Most women do not know that they've got postnatal depression. So we'll say to women, reach out, seek help. They can't. Yeah. They don't know that's what they're struggling with.
I'd go with the iPad before I went in. I'd just be like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Because in my brain, I'm fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we're just programmed to be fine.
Yes.
Yes. It's hard to explain out of it. I hold a lot of guilt off it. And I think I have taken that into my parenting with Charlie. I'm very overprotective of him because I feel like I missed like 9 months.
Yeah.
And I hold guilt on that perhaps I didn't have with the other two.
Yeah. So you didn't have it with the other two. That's so good, isn't it? I'm so
just in the middle.
That you did. Yeah. Yeah.
But he had reflux. So I think there was a lot of environmental things that sort of like contributed. I was exhausted. Yeah. You know, we're talking every hour he was awake. He was arched back, thinner than normal. And, you know, there's only so much you can do because he was going to grow out of it. Yeah. Because it was milk reflux rather than acid. Yeah. So it was just sort of a bit of a waiting game. Obviously we did what we could and, you know, the certain milks and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, it was really hard. It was really hard. And then I was living in a country that I didn't like. So it was hard.
Yeah. So many layers to that.
So many layers. Whereas when I gave birth to Olivia, I was like, right, I know I'm moving in 3 months. Yeah. So I was like, I had my prize at the end. Yeah. Yeah. And that was, again, something I had to look forward to. Yeah. I think sometimes it can be things around you as well that are sort of going into it.
Absolutely. Environment and your support network are absolutely key. There's a lot of research into this for mental health in general, but also for postnatal depression. And there's research shows that having a strong network of supportive people reduces the symptoms of postnatal depression.
Oh, definitely.
It might not take them away entirely, but it can reduce the severity of it. And I always say to women, find your tribe. Like, I know within like 10 seconds if a mum's going to be my mate or not.
Yeah, 100%.
You just know quick.
Yeah, people.
Yeah. And like finding those people that you can be your 100% raw self. Like some of the voice notes I've sent my mum mates are like, whoa. But I know they accept me just as I am. They don't judge me. They'll laugh or cry with me.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to have that. And every new mum needs to have that and deserves to have that, because it preserves your mental health.
Yeah. And sometimes your partner gets really annoying.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Like, actually, sometimes you're like, you're the enemy. You did this to me.
Yes. It can feel like that.
Yeah. So having friends out of it really helps. I know a lot of women, though, do struggle sometimes making friends and that, because you do feel so isolated.
Yeah.
I think something that is really lucky, which honestly it's not luck, it's just what it should be, is in the UK it's like getting out the house. There's a lot more available, because obviously maternity leave is much longer in the UK or in the US it's much shorter, so there's less available, you know, like mummy and baby classes and things like that. Like it's so important, even if you don't want to go, go to the library, and if your baby can't sing, it really doesn't matter. Like, you're going there to see another human, another mum who's perhaps also struggling. I know it's sad, but like, it can make you feel like at peace.
Definitely. No, I completely agree with that. And there's this saying, if in doubt, get out.
Yeah.
Because I think when you're sitting at home often on your own with a baby or with a couple of babies, that can feel really isolating and lonely. You can also start to get a bit like cabin fever almost. And but when you get out in the fresh air, you've got like the birds to listen to see whatever your environment is. You're out of home, and that's, you know, all of perhaps the stress of the morning or whatever's gone on at home, all of the laundry and God knows what. You're out in a different environment, and even if you have to go back to that absolute chaos, you've had a break from it, because you're constantly clearing up after kids. So I always just like, right, off we go. I leave the house in absolute state. I know it's controversial. Oh, do you? You
I
leave
do
it
as well.
state?
Yeah. And then I'll come back and work it out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I just need to get out of this house because I'm going mental right now. So let's all leave. And then everything gets better.
Yeah. I think it really helped having a dog. Some people actually are like, oh my God, I'm so overstimulated by my dog. I'm actually the opposite. I'm like, you're my ally.
Yeah.
Like, we're
husband, enemy,
bitch,
dog ally.
Yeah, bitch, we're in this together. Okay. You know those late nights? It's you and me, girl. And it really helped me getting out of the house, because the dog had to be walked every day.
Yeah.
And if I didn't walk her, she'd be pawing at me. So I'm like, right, we've got to put the bait. It's time to do the walk. She's telling me.
Yeah.
So that was actually really helpful.
Yeah, that was like your signal.
Yeah. Was to do that.
Oh, I've also not thought about that, having a dog and like being up in the night, doing the night feeds, and the dog's
We'd like
also...
look at each other.
We're in this together. That is cute though.
I can see why it's over. I've got a puppy now. It's over. That's
a
I wouldn't
lot.
recommend that with a new baby. No. I actually put it to my DMs for a couple of people to ask questions. So I've got a few to ask you. Someone said, I'm pregnant with my first baby. What is the thing I should research the most?
I would say physiology, and to put it simply, how a woman's body usually works during pregnancy, and most importantly, during birth. So how to work with your body, because even if you end up with an epidural, an induction, a cesarean section, or a lot of intervention during your pregnancy, you still understand how to work with your body. And what we've just talked about surrounding postnatal depression, oxytocin is like the bonding, the love hormone. It's also responsible for contractions during labour. So it's really important that you understand how to work with those hormones and how to kind of support them to be released during birth, but also postnatally, because oxytocin dips can also leads to depression, or lead to those feelings of low mood rather. So understanding how to work with your body and what your body goes through. And I mean, it's actually fairly simple and basic. There are a few hormones you need to learn. Like I say, oxytocin, how to work with it, prolactin if you're planning on breastfeeding. You know, there's a couple of things that's really important that you need to know about how the body works, and simple things that you can do to work with your body, no matter what situation you're presented with.
Oh, love that. Education is key.
It is.
I'm a bit of a both. Like, sometimes I'm like, ignorance is a bit bliss.
No, I get that, and you don't have to learn everything overnight.
Yeah.
Like it just needs to be the simple things, like in particular oxytocin. Like that's really important, and understanding how your environment has such a big impact on you.
I wish I'd known that actually more.
Yeah.
I think I would have prepared my home more.
Yeah, exactly.
Think.
And little
weirdly, yeah.
No, it makes sense. And also, like you pointed out, a lot of your labour is actually spent, in early labour when you don't necessarily have access to, medical staff or analgesia or an epidural. You need to be able to, deal with that time and what you're going to do with that time. And like you say, set up your home, have music on, like whatever makes you feel comfortable and relaxed, like have a little bit of a plan around that to help your body release oxytocin. Because even if you're having a C-section, your uterus is stretched to, about the size of a watermelon. That needs to go back down into the pelvis quickly. So, and that it prevents bleeding as well. So, all of these...
Those cramps.
I know. And the more you have, the worse it gets.
The worse it gets. It is. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's when they come in afterwards. I don't know if they did this for me, and they like give you a massage like a few hours later.
That's a US thing, yeah.
Oh, it is the most painful thing. And also you can feel your blood gushing.
Yeah.
Which is weird. I remember after I gave birth, for the first time, I was like, am I dying?
Yeah.
Where is all this blood coming from? Because obviously it's like a cup, isn't it? So then when you stand up, it's like whoosh.
Yeah.
And it's, I never knew that was a thing.
You didn't know? No. And lots of women don't. A lot of women are surprised.
I pushed the bell. I thought I was hemorrhaging.
But it's not a bad thing because it's always good. Like, hemorrhage is one of the leading causes globally of adverse outcomes. So if you are concerned about your bleeding, always let someone know. However, that kind of bleeding is very common.
I know. And I was in the hospital. I was in
so you were fine.
I was fine. I just didn't know about it. It's crazy. Yeah. How do you feel about the fear mongering online for inductions? Because there's a lot of like negativity around them, but a lot can end up with them.
Yeah.
So then it's like you feel like you failed, or you've taken the easy way out, or things like that.
Yes, definitely. And as we've said, I think like the digital world, in some ways, it's not. Find accounts that you find helpful, and that you can really trust and are based on, experience. Don't necessarily even need to be a qualified midwife or a doctor, depending on, where you want to seek your information from, but making sure that person has experience, that they've been at births before, and that they've got years under their belt is what I would recommend. And then unfollow accounts that you're not finding helpful, and that might not just be healthcare accounts, that might be any kind of accounts. Like I used to follow quite a lot of like beauty and fashion, and then like when I became a mum, I was like, do you know what, this is not serving me, because this is so far from like who I am right now. Like I need the content that makes me feel normal, and is reflective of my actual life. So I think like being super careful where you gain your information from and who you listen to is a great starting point. And the other thing with fear mongering is, induction of labour, I'm not going to lie, it does come with risks. It can save lives and it can be really helpful and really important. Some women have a particularly negative experience. Some women have a particularly positive experience. The most important thing to cut is to cut out the noise. Speak to your care provider about your concerns in relation to induction and what you want from labour and birth, rather than be like misled by someone else's experience or advice, because what you want might differ from what I want. So it's really important for you to have a kind of a good look at that with your care provider. Yeah, and I think as well, an induction is not like one mould fits all.
Exactly.
There's
so many different... Technically, I had an induction with Olivia, but I only took one tiny pill under my tongue just to get things moving, and then I had nothing else. I had no Pitocin, I had nothing, but technically I had an induction. But then with Sophie, I had the Foley balloon, I had Pitocin, I had like all the bits.
All the bits,
but there's like they were night and day. It was so different. So an induction has so many different elements, and they sort of gear up
absolutely
up a tier, a ladder on the whole.
I totally agree. And in lots of places in the UK, if you're having an induction because you're overdue and you just have propers, so that's like a locally, it goes into the vagina and it sits there. if you're having that and you've had an uncomplicated pregnancy, otherwise a lot of hospital units will say it's okay for you to go home. Whereas an induction of labour that requires syntocin the hormone drip, is completely different to that. So as you say, there are different layers and there are different ways and different methodologies, different medications that we use to induce labour. So it's about being specific what that induction looks like for you, what you're willing to consent to, and where you're going to pull the plug on it and say, I would have ProPers, but I wouldn't have this, for example, later on. It puts you in the driver's seat and it puts you in control.
Yeah. Is 30 too old to train as a midwife?
No, definitely not.
I know. I even want to shout that because I'm watching One Born every minute.
Yeah.
You would see women qualifying in like their 40s and stuff, and it's like their second calling.
Yeah, exactly.
And they would say, they're like, oh, people always like really trust me because I'm older.
Yeah.
But actually, I've only been qualified for a year.
Yeah. No, it's so true. So I trained with a group, a real mixed bag. Some of us were like, you know, going into like 18, 19, 20. And some of the other women that I trained with were in their 40s and had like teenage kids. I almost viewed them as like potentially like a mother figure for me as a student midwife. And we were training together. And it was really interesting to see how differently they were treated compared to me being so young.
Yeah.
They were treated differently for sure. And I think that's natural in some ways. And there was different kinds of respect for them. Not that there wasn't respect, it was just a different kind of respect. So being 30 years old, I would not, no way is it too old. It's a great age. Go for it.
Yeah, and you've got a bit of life behind you and talking to people and stuff that, you know, perhaps in your 20s you maybe don't have yet. But you'll learn. It's very easy to learn.
Yeah, it's easy to learn. It's easy to adapt. And you need to be a certain type of person from a young age that you feel comfortable talking to lots of different people. And, you know, I had one experience where the husband was like, who's the 13-year-old? And I was like, I'm your midwife. Oh, God. And he was like, sorry, what? You are our midwife.
Well,
and
you're still so young and youthful looking now.
Oh, thank you.
But you still get those comments.
I'm going to come back.
Yeah. I had a 3rd degree tear with my first baby. Am I likely to tear again for the second time?
So there is research that demonstrates you are slightly more likely to have a significant tear with subsequent babies. But there's still a 90% chance-ish that you won't. So there's still a very high chance that you won't. And the reason that you tore so badly last time, you might want to be, if you're able to do that, look around the circumstances and the reason for that tear. You know, I'm a massive advocate for maternal positioning. I think that's really important. And the women listening to their bodies, because all of this lying on your back, push, this force pushing, you're going to cause perineal trauma, like less space, less speed. So when you slow down the birth of the head, there's less chance of there being trauma. So you're allowing those tissues to all stretch as well. Whereas if we're like forcing babies out, of course, if the baby's seriously distressed and we're really concerned, then that's different. But the vast majority of the time we are not, and we should be allowing time for the perineum to stretch. So I think doing some research around perineal tissue, around stretching, around like water submersion, all of those things that can help you, maternal positioning, breathing, etc., that can really, really help.
Okay, great. Someone's just put poop ?
I think I know what they mean.
Yeah.
Will I poop?
Will I poop?
Will I poop? The answer to that is very likely yes.
Yeah.
There's a few reasons. One of them being if the rectum is full, there's no space when a baby's being born, when the head's being pushed through the pelvis. I say there's no space. I mean, obviously there's space for the baby's head, but there's not space for much else. So if there is poo in the rectum, that will be pushed out alongside the baby's head. Also, pushing itself, of course, can lead to you having a poo. It's all normal. It's all fine.
There's so much stuff coming out.
Yeah.
It all gets cleaned and...
Yeah. There's so many women that I've looked after that if their husbands have been right there and they've had no idea that they've pooed because I've just seen it coming. Thought quickly, get it.
Yeah, discreet.
Very discreet. And with an Inco sheet, it's got a surrounding of plastic around it so the smell doesn't escape. So off it goes and no one knows. And sometimes the woman might not have even known.
Yeah. I think I was so scared of that.
Yeah.
I did with Sophie only because my husband told me. But I was labouring for 36 hours.
Yeah.
Like,
there's going to be poo in your rectum.
That's going to happen, isn't it? Yeah. With Olivia, I didn't because it just was like, boop.
Yeah.
Baby was coming. Yeah, nothing else was. I have a question on this because I I see this come up a little bit here and there, but I feel like it's not talked about enough. Is HPV. So I had HPV. Between my two oldest, I had, in the US it's called a LEAP, where they remove
the LETS procedure
here, I think. And a lot of people, there's so much of misinformation. So when I actually went to labour with Charlie after having that, instead of, you know, people go, oh, you're going to give birth early and your baby's going to fall out of your body at 33 weeks and all this sort of stuff. Whereas actually for me, I had scar tissue, in fact, from having it. And my midwife was like, we actually see this more common, that it's actually stuck. So I actually had my epidural, and then they sort of manually went in and sort of massaged my scar tissue to allow me to dilate. Do you find women get nervous around this, the misinformation and stuff? Because HPV, as we know, is extremely common.
80% of people have it or are exposed to it.
I obviously just couldn't fight it off. Most people can. How do you feel about the misinformation and stuff around HPV and going into birth, and some advice for someone who perhaps is nervous?
No, it's totally understandable. I too had that procedure as well.
Oh, did you?
Okay. And so here in the UK, the protocol is often if a woman has had treatment to her cervix, then what we will do earlier on in pregnancy is we will do what's known as a cervical lengthening ultrasound scan. So we will have a look. So we will have a look at the length of the cervix. And in most cases, a huge amount of cervix has not been affected or removed. And usually those undertaking the procedure will document exactly what they've taken away, or they should document that. So that's good information to have. And then there is a care pathway, because it is so common, that we will scan the length of the cervix, and the vast majority of the time it's absolutely a normal length and we don't need to do anything else or have any further considerations. If the cervix for some reason is short, that then you will be seen by an obstetrician and you will be advised on that. But even then, it's still rare for women to go into premature labour. The cervix is so strong. It's incredible. Like the fact that it can hold a whole human being, a placenta, and a load of amniotic fluid with this like ring of muscle. I mean, it's not just that, it's held by the uterus as well. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's, you know, it's incredibly strong.
Very strong cork.
It's a very strong cork. So give it credit. But there will be support for you. And if there are concerns over the length of your cervix, you will have that discussed with an obstetrician, and there are possible solutions or advice and recommendations around that, such as a cervical stitch.
I get a lot of people who are just like, oh my God, thank you so much for talking about this. And it's sad that it's not talked about enough. And I was actually very lucky. My aunt actually passed away from cervical cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So in my family, it's all like, oh gosh. So I had by chance, when I went for in the US, you have a 6-week check at your OB, and she went, oh, we actually don't have a smear test on file. Do you mind if I just do one quickly now? And I was like, oh, I only had one like a year ago. And I was like, fine. So she did it, and then they found actually I was quite progressed. And it had obviously moved very fast, and you know why, I'm not sure, but that could have saved my life, was having it. And I always say to people, it's like, you would rather have this procedure than not be here.
Absolutely.
Like at the end of the day, it is so important to keep up with your smear tests. It is so important to look after your female health, because only you can do that, and you are in charge of that, and it is better that you are here than not. At the end of the day.
Absolutely.
My friend's had 2 LEAP procedures, and she's got 2 beautiful boys afterwards. So like she even had 2, and she birthed absolutely fine.
It is rare for it to really affect your birth, and as I say, we said it's so common now. Like both you and I have both had it. It just isn't spoken about enough. There'll be lots and lots of other women that have it, and lots of women that I see that have had it, and there are no complications. So I think you're really right to identify that, especially if you haven't had children and you're concerned about how it may affect, you know, your journey going into motherhood.
Another perhaps taboo conversation, which is very common, is abortion. I personally have I had one in my teenage years, and I've now gone on to have 3 beautiful children. Based on 2024 facts, 1 in 3 pregnancies in the UK actually had a variant of abortion factored in. I know a lot of people think that, you know, obviously there's religious aspects that are involved for people's mental health around that, but then also people believe that they won't be able to have children again or it's going to affect them or anything? Do you have a message to people who have been through that and want to have a family moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. So your body doesn't hold moral memory. So your body doesn't go, well, you had an abortion, I'm going to punish you now by not being able to have children. Like the body it doesn't do that. And also the vast majority of abortions are medical abortions rather than surgical. So surgical do come with slightly more risk, but the risk is still very low to damage to the uterus. So vast majority of abortions, as I say, are medical. And once that has been complete, that does not affect your fertility moving forward. And the vast majority of women that have had abortions and then want to have children later on go on to have children later on and do not have any issues with their fertility as a result. But I think the biggest thing that I see with women is guilt for aborting one child and then wanting to have children. And they feel like that's something that they almost don't deserve. So that's why I started off with your body doesn't do that to you. It doesn't try to punish you for a decision that you made that was best for you at the time.
Because it's very common when you look at the stats that mothers choose to have abortions because for so many reasons, for
it's becoming
medical
more common,
or environmental, cost of living, things like that, focusing on the children they have here. So it's just so much more common. I've talked about it quite a bit on my page, and I don't talk about it often, but like ever so often I will, because I don't think about it as often. And I always say and I have the most amazing comment sections, which actually the first time I posted about it, I was really scared.
I bet.
And I posted from America, which obviously it's a big conversation there. But my comment section is always so lovely. Ever so often you'll get some prick, but like, you know, the women go for them. It's fine.
Good.
But I say to people, I'm like, look, it will consume you when you first do it. Because of course it will. It is a massive decision that you've made. Women on the whole, you know, I'm sure there's like the 0.00001% did it on a whim. This is something you've really thought about.
Yeah.
You know, so it is going to consume you. And then eventually you'll start thinking about it only when you're a bit pissed, you know, and you're drunk. And then as time goes on, it will be like, oh, I didn't think about it this week. Or like for me now, it will be like, oh, I did that when I was 19. And it becomes easier to deal with because I think some people who have just had one, they can't see out of the trauma in that moment. And I always just say to people whenever I talk about mine, because I don't talk about why I did it or because I don't think that's important, it's there is light at the end of the tunnel and you're going to be okay. Oh, it's making me, my whole hands are gone. But you are going to be okay. And this is just life now. Like there are so many things involved and you have to protect yourself. You have to protect the children that you have. There are so many reasons why people have them. Some are medical. You might be unwell and it not be something you can do. You have to protect yourself in those moments. You know, mum comes first.
Yeah, definitely. Mum always comes first. And that good old saying, time's the healer, which is basically what you're saying. And it's so true. And I think like, although as cliche and cheesy as it sounds, it's also true. Like learning to love the different versions of yourself that you are and were, and like also forgiving that person. Like it was a decision that you made at the time. Like it doesn't make you a bad person, and you don't have to carry that around with you. And like, it is a big decision, you know. And I've looked after women that have had, you know, terminations for all kinds of reasons, and some of them being medical, like the baby may not be compatible with life, or the baby may be really severely disabled. And that's a really, really tricky decision that takes a long time for women to make and their partners to make. Them make it, you know, a lot of the time they're making it together. But it's really difficult. And it's not just as kind of straightforward as, oh, you know, you've made this decision. Well, perhaps I nearly made the other decision, but I'll never know what that would have been like because I didn't. And this is now what I'm dealing with. So I think, learning to accept and love all versions of yourself, and just always knowing that you can only do what you can do at the time. And not feeling bad or guilty about that anymore. And like, you know, relieving yourself from that, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, it's very freeing.
Yeah.
Right, well, that's for my questions. But so let's bring the tone up a notch after that. And do our Don't Touch It's. Mine is I did it on theme. Yeah. And these always end up being about men.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm here for it.
They're just so easy. They're like such an
they?
easy target. During my birth with Sophie, I laboured for 36 hours, Foley balloon, all the bits. My husband, as we were pushing, I pushed for 2 hours as well. So we were getting towards that line where they were like, do we need to use the
suction cap? Yeah.
So I could tell they were whispering about it. And I was like, I'm getting this fucking baby out. But it was a long time. It was 2 hours. But actually for me, I had an epidural. I thought I slept in between.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I was like dozing off in between. My husband pulled up a chair and sat down. And I remember at the time I was like, get up. And I had like a really southern nurse and she went,
She was well on your side.
Yeah. She was like,
I love that.
Because he took like one of those like stools, you know, the wheelie stools that they use. Oh, don't be sitting down while I'm pushing to create us a life. Okay. It's the least you can do is stand.
I get that. Also, the wheelie stool is technically the medical stool because they need to be able to swivel. And
they're swishing around.
He's
just like, oh, I'll have that.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
What's the weirdest thing you've seen a man do?
Oh, okay. I've seen a lot of interesting things in my time. I don't know if I can say it because it will breach confidentiality because he'll definitely know I'm talking about him.
Oh, damn it.
There's been a couple of, I mean, obviously I've had some fainters. I have had guys that have like been like expecting, I don't know, one where would you like some tea and toast? You know, like tea and toast is the classic thing that you have after birth, and then him being like, yes, please.
Yes, please. Oh, not for you, love.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had some funny conversations as well with partners in birth rooms. I mean, you meet all different people from all walks of life. It's so interesting. Yeah. But I have had some, borderline heated debates even with husbands, like when I just don't agree with perhaps the way that they are speaking to
treating
their partner and treating their partner. Obviously, my job as a midwife is to always remain professional and non-judgmental.
But you're always on her team.
But
at the end of the day,
of course, I'm here for her. The word midwife means with woman, so that will always back me up.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that was mine. Yeah, don't sit down.
Okay.
Do something.
So I was gonna say my don't touch it, but this is like a really general.
No, it's okay. Do it.
One.
No.
Okay. Virtue signalers.
What is that?
A virtue signaler. So it's someone that like exploits like negative situations for like social capital gain. So basically it's people that will do things like talk about how great they are for all of like the amazing work that they do for like, you know, or something will happen online and they will present themselves as being the person that knows everything about this topic. Like, I'm more intelligent than you. And they'll like rush to the internet to come up with all of these different points to like try and prove themselves. So like just show how great they are.
They are.
But there's never any action behind the words. So when it comes to actually like action in these things, do you really care about the situation? Have you actually done anything? Do you really understand the situation? What's going on? So virtue signalers in general, I cannot handle.
In person or online?
Both.
But
online, because they're more prevalent online.
Everyone's a doctor online. At the moment with my puppy, everyone's a dog trainer. Yeah. Everyone
all know. Yeah.
Everyone knows.
They all know everything. And it drives me mental because I read this stuff and I'm like, I obviously can't comment.
Yeah.
But I read this stuff and I'm like, you're just virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Stop it. Stop.
Do you find that especially when you see like medical stuff and you are like, but you're wrong?
Yes. Yeah. And I see it all the time. And they're coming up with this stuff that actually, or like they're talking about their personal experience that is not reflective of global data. And it's like, well, they know more because this is what happened to them at this time. Or it's like, excuse me, well, this is how and it's like, but no, what you're doing is just talking about yourself.
Yes.
Like, it's not helpful for everybody.
Interesting. So I agree.
That really, really irritates me at the moment specifically.
That's your ick, your irk, your don't do it.
That's my big ick at the moment because
I love
it's so common,
Yeah, I see it every day. Or you do as well, you're online, so.
Yeah, how great.
Right, let's do our viewer ones. Okay, I legit cringe every time, but when I was at the pushing stages and I was trying to feel or know where to push, if you know what I mean, it's different kind of push for a baby, my first, than maybe a poo, which they always tell you.
Yeah.
My midwife literally put her fingers in and pushed where I needed to push. For the rest of my labour, about 10 minutes, I consistently shouted, "Put your fingers in me." She's written that in caps. My husband and my mum were in absolute hysterics and asked my midwife, said, "I don't think I've ever had anyone shout at me to essentially finger them while cringing as I'm writing this." I guess that's don't touch it. That's please do touch.
Please do touch it more and more.
Oh, it is. It's different.
Yeah,
pushing.
It is very different, especially if you've got an epidural as well, because obviously it interferes with those sensations.
Yeah.
So some women do need that level of guidance where they're like, okay, I need to know exactly where I'm bearing down.
I think my midwife did this for Sophie.
Yeah, she probably
put
did.
it at the bottom and was pulling down.
Yeah.
I think I had this.
Yeah.
But that is funny, yelling out. It's going back earlier to not having a quiet birth, to just yelling.
Yeah.
That's her. She's yelling, "Put your fingers in me."
I would have loved to hear that from outside the room. What's going on?
Having a tea at the
at the desk.
So funny. Oh, bless. But those are the sort of things, though. It's you just had to do it to get through.
Yeah.
There's no shame.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And there's so much of that during birth as well. Some of the things that women shout or come out with, and you just end up laughing. I've been in hysterics on night shifts with women where they've been on gas and air and just saying these wild flowy things, and we're both just wheezing with laughter together.
I love that. Oh, I never had gas and air. I wish I had that.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's not as common. It just wasn't even available.
Oh,
I think that some hospitals are starting to put it in, but yeah, I just didn't have it at all.
Oh, shame. Maybe have a fourth and a sneaky little.
I know. My mum was like, "You could have another, and you can just see what it's like on the NHS." I'm like, "God, that's dedication." That
probably won't have another baby.
Yeah,
to
just
try
for the content. Yeah,
I might buy some
US
mushrooms
versus
off the
UK. This is kind of what you were talking about earlier, right? So after you give birth in the UK, the NHS gives you a lovely little snack, aka the tea and toast.
Yes,
I never had that.
Did you not?
I had a Wagamama's.
Oh, that's better. That's way better.
Anyways, I had to pop to the toilet. When I got back, I saw that my husband had taken the largest bite out of my tea and toast, something me and my friends had been talking about for months, because they all had kids, but I hadn't. I can easily say I was fuming. Don't touch my tea and toast, the greatest post-birth food ever.
Absolutely agree with that. How dare he? If I was in the room and he'd have picked that up, I would have said, "Excuse me, that's not for you."
Oh my God, I was so jealous of this tea and toast that I hear everyone talk about.
Oh, it's just the best thing ever after you've had a baby. I'm going to say that Wagamama's, I do think that might be a bit more substantial.
Do you get it during your golden hour?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I had to wait till I got to mummy and baby.
Usually, yeah, on the labour ward, you'll get tea and toast.
But what I would have done for a tea and toast after a long induction.
Yeah, it's so British, isn't it, as well? A cup of tea and toast with a
on
load
those
of butter.
NHS plates with loads of butter.
Yeah.
Oh, that's winning. I see, I'm jealous. Yeah, maybe I do.
You can recreate it. I can recreate it for you if you want. I can come round.
Please come round to my house.
I'll put my scrubs on. Yes. You can sit on the sofa with a dolly. And I'll be like, do you want your tea and toast?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, definitely. Right, we'll do one more because we've talked for so long and I love it.
My bad.
Right. I once had a friend confidently tell me what I should have done during my labour, differently during my labour. She went through all the different choices and decisions she would have made. She wasn't there and I hadn't asked for her opinion. At that point, I was trying to process it myself and just get through. I didn't need it explained back to me. Don't touch my labour.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, that is so annoying. I might have blocked her.
Yes. I would have taken space.
Yeah.
Because what are you then going to be saying to me on my newborn choices?
That's it, exactly. That sets you up for a different kind of friendship.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of what I was saying as well about mum friends. You need to find the people that don't do things like that to you.
Yeah.
And they listen to what you've got to say and they empathise with you rather than being like, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that."
Yeah.
And it's well, that's not what I want to hear, is it? No.
I think I have got some. My best friend will always be like, "Oh yeah, but an epidural's better," and she'll be like, "No." But we have a bit of banter over it, and it's definitely months after.
Yes.
After just giving birth, I would be nervous. That person would be like, "That's the wrong bottle. No, you should actually do this."
No.
I would distance myself from that person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unsolicited advice is the worst kind of advice, especially in new motherhood. Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
Don't touch it.
I always say to my friends who are giving birth, I'm like, "Here, if you have any questions, just let me know if you want any advice or oh, you got that, that's awesome. Like I'll always say to people, like, because I use the Love to Dream swaddles, for example, and I'll always say, people will say to me like, oh, what ones did you get? I went, oh, I got the Love to Dream, but I have also seen other people use these ones.
Yeah.
And like to give people options, because if you just go in with like, well, this is what I did, unless it's like your sister, which is what I did with mine, but like I think that's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope, and it often does not end well. Get rid. That would be my honest advice as well.
Motherhood really shows people's true colours.
It definitely does. And I was so surprised by some of the people that I have in my life that they just took on completely different roles that I was not expecting at all. Which was really difficult to navigate, because sometimes you do have to actually set some firm boundaries with those people. And there were a couple of people that I pretty much stopped talking to. Like I'm still in contact with them now. I'm like, you know, I'm a well-seasoned mum, so I feel like it won't affect me as much as being a new mum. But yeah, there had to be times where I'd just be like, I'm not answering your call and I'm not texting you back either, because it's not good for my mental health.
You're not even getting my copy and paste text from my notes.
Yeah, you're not. Literally.
I've had to hold in a lot of tears. Aww. You know, when you can feel it like going up through your arms, because it's so magical.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like sometimes it's like, oh, why are you harping on about it? It's like, it's so magical. And it is for me, I always knew I was going to have children. Like from a young age, I just knew my purpose on this earth was going to be to have children. And I just feel like it's so cool.
It is. It's like the realest, rawest thing ever. Like we were saying as well, like there's so much, like there's a lot of filters and there's a lot of faking online, and there's a lot of like, I don't know, just, I guess like perspectives on things that aren't actually true in real life. But when you see a birth, or you're at your own birth, or you have a baby, there's no faking, there's no filter. It's just pure raw human emotion, and there's nothing else that makes you feel more alive, I think, than that kind of early motherhood period.
Oh, I just love it. This was awesome. This was like one of my greatest wants for this series, is to have a midwife come on.
Oh, good.
And then automatically I thought of you. Because I just thought, it's so good, because there's so many people that watch this who are mums, who also, it's really helpful for people who aren't mums or aren't parents, for them to be able to be like, oh, that's perhaps why they were like that, or understanding. I think it's just really good, because, you know, having children is a choice, and it's a big choice. And I think it's especially apparent now in our day and age that, you know, you don't have to have children, but there are people still birthing and then in your life, and it's, you know, important to understand what they're going through, this, so that you can sympathise and keep your connection, and perhaps not say things like that.
I was going to say that. I actually have one don't touch it for husbands.
Okay, go on.
From me. Open mouth eating. Do not do that.
Men struggle with this.
Do not do that. It's so annoying, especially in the birth room, or after you've had a baby and you're just like, you know, and you're like, oh, like you've settled the baby, you've latched them on the breast or whatever. You've got a minute of just quiet, especially when you've got other kids, and they're like,
oh, rummaging.
And
eating
like,
in general, ask my permission. Ask my permission.
Yeah, not right next to me.
I wasn't allowed to eat, and with I was on had my epidural, and Kyle ordered food in.
Naughty boy.
Yeah.
Don't tell me he ate it right next to you.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything else, but he's a naughty boy.
Things have happened through three births. Actually, a lot happened in Sophie, because both of those things were Sophie.
Yeah, oh, really?
Yeah, he didn't the next time.
Then he learned.
He learned. They're learning too. What is exciting coming up for 2026 for you?
So, of course, I'm going to have my third baby. So that is the most exciting thing, I have to say. But something that has been around for a long time is I published this nearly 6 years ago now.
Wow.
But it's my guide to pregnancy, birth and beyond. And it's a guide that is written just with a really friendly, simple, easy to read tone. Like, I'm not science heavy on anything. And a lot of the feedback is, it's like talking to a friend. And that's exactly, when I wrote it, that's how I wanted to come across. Like, I'm a friend that's just chatting to you. And I've got a second book as well that was published 2 years ago, and a third one on the way. Every time I have a baby, I write a book.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, that's amazing. I read books and stuff during my pregnancies as well, because again, you get so much information on social media. Sometimes it's nice to just sort of hone in on something. And 6 years and it's still doing well. That's amazing. Obviously, it's a good book.
Yeah, well, I hope so. And the feedback's been good. So that's what I go by.
That. Yeah.
And I have some mums sending me, like, they put like little post-it notes in it and like bits to come back to, because it's got a postnatal section as well. So we talked about the postnatal plan. I actually have a whole plan in here that I recommend of things that you do.
That is amazing.
When you're pregnant, to plan for your postnatal self.
Okay, fantastic. I will link everything in any description boxes on where you are listening or watching this podcast, so you'll be able to grab this amazing book. Congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much again.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week. Please, please, please write in. We'd love hearing from you, your icks, your irks, your don't touch it, don't do this, don't do that. It always gives us a little bit of a giggle at the end of our episodes, and you can write them in to Don't Touch It at Caroline Parker, or you can just comment below. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.